A man entered and asked if the aisle that remembers had been sealed. The bell above the door didn't ring when he came in. I noticed that first. It was the kind of detail you only pick up after hours of nothing. No customers, no cars passing, just the low hum of the refrigerators and the occasional click from the fluorescent lights overhead. Past midnight, the store always felt like it had slipped a few inches out of place, like it wasn't fully connected to the rest of the street anymore. The bell should have rung. It didn't. I looked up anyway. He was already halfway to the counter. I hadn't heard the door open. Hadn't seen it move. But there he was, tall, narrow shoulders, a dark coat that looked too heavy for the season. His face was pale in a way that didn't match the lighting, as if it held onto a different kind of brightness. He didn't browse, didn't hesitate, just walked straight up and stopped. "Excuse me," he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried strangely, like it echoed before it reached me. "Yeah," I replied, leaning back on the stool behind the register. He glanced past me, toward the aisles, then back again. "Has the aisle that remembers been sealed?" I blinked. What? The aisle that remembers," he repeated, patient, as if I'd misheard, not misunderstood. "Has it been sealed tonight?" A small, uneasy laugh slipped out of me. "We've got 6 aisles. None of them, remember," he finished, tilting his head. The fluorescent light above us flickered once. The hum deepened, like a breath drawn in. "I think you've got the wrong place," I said. He didn't react, didn't smile, didn't frown, just stood there, watching me. Then, softly, "You're working alone." It wasn't a question. "Yeah," I said, more guarded now. "Night shift." He nodded, as if confirming something to himself. "That makes it easier," he murmured. "For what?" "For it to keep things." The air shifted. It was subtle, a change in pressure more than temperature. Like the store had just been sealed from the outside. I glanced down the aisles. They looked the same as always, rows of snacks, drinks, cleaning supplies. Everything neat, predictable, familiar. But something about the spacing felt off. Aisle 3 looked longer than it should. Or maybe narrower. I couldn't tell. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, forcing steadiness into my voice. "If you're looking for something, just. It remembers footsteps first," he interrupted. I stopped. He leaned slightly closer to the counter. "Patterns," he continued. "Routes people take without thinking. It learns them, repeats them." The hum of the lights wavered again. "And if it hasn't been sealed," he added, "it starts to keep them." A faint sound came from behind me. A soft scuff, like a shoe against tile. I turned. No one was there. The aisles stretched empty, shelves lined in rigid rows. The back of the store disappeared into that same dim, flickering light. Another sound. 2 steps this time, closer. I swallowed. "You heard that," the man said. I didn't answer. "Has it been sealed?" he asked again. "How do you seal an aisle?" I snapped, more sharply than I intended. He studied me for a moment. Then his gaze shifted, past me again. This time, it didn't come back. "That one," he said quietly. I followed his line of sight. Aisle 4. I frowned. There was nothing different about it. Same shelves, same spacing, same products. But as I stared, something shifted. Not visibly, not like movement, more like alignment. The items on the shelves seemed to settle into a pattern I recognized. A path. From the front of the aisle to the back. My path. The one I took when I restocked. The one I'd walked 100 times. A faint echo followed in my ears. Footsteps. Mine. But slightly out of sync. I took a step back. The echo took a step forward. From inside the aisle. "Okay," I said under my breath. No, that's not. It's open," the man said. My chest tightened. "What happens if it's not sealed?" I asked. He looked at me again. This time, there was something like sympathy in his expression. "It starts small," he said. "Echoes, repetitions, things you almost recognize." Another sound came from aisle 4. A voice. Mine. Not. It cut off abruptly. I felt the blood drain from my face. "That's not funny," I said, louder now, though I wasn't sure who I was speaking to. The aisle answered. "Funny," it repeated, but the tone was wrong. Flat, delayed, like it had learned the shape of the word but not the meaning. The man stepped back from the counter. "You need to seal it," he said. "How?" "Close it off. Interrupt the pattern. Break the path it knows." Another set of footsteps echoed. Closer. I could almost see them now, not clearly, but as distortions in the air, like heat rising from pavement. A shape moving down the aisle, following the exact route I always took. Replaying me. "Do it now," he said. I hesitated. The aisle pulsed. Subtle, like a breath. And then, I saw myself. At the far end. Just for a second. Stocking shelves. Head down. Focused. Unaware. I stumbled backward. "That's not." The aisle echoed again. The man moved toward the exit. "You're running out of time," he said. "Wait," I said, panic breaking through. "What happens if I don't?" He paused at the door. "It keeps what it remembers," he said. "And eventually, it stops needing the original." The door opened. This time, the bell didn't ring. He stepped out, and was gone. Silence crashed in behind him. Then, the footsteps in aisle 4 quickened. I moved. I didn't think. I just acted. I grabbed a stack of cardboard boxes from behind the counter and ran toward the aisle. My shoes slapped against the tile, loud and uneven. The echo followed. Perfect. Matching me now. I reached the entrance to aisle 4 and shoved the boxes across it, blocking the path. The moment the last one hit the floor, everything stopped. The hum, the echoes, even my breathing felt muted. I stood there, frozen, staring at the blocked aisle. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, a single step. From the other side, I flinched. Another step. Closer. The boxes shifted. Just slightly. I backed away. No, I whispered. The aisle answered. No, it said, in my voice. The boxes bulged outward, as if something pressed against them from within. Another step. And then, silence. I waited. Seconds stretched. Minutes. Nothing moved. The pressure eased. Slowly, carefully, I stepped closer again. The boxes were still. The aisle beyond them was quiet. Empty. I let out a shaky breath. It's sealed, I said, more to convince myself than anything. Sealed, the store echoed faintly. I turned, and froze. At the counter, someone stood, behind the register, facing the door, my uniform, my posture, my reflection in the dark glass of the entrance. Perfect. The figure didn't move, didn't breathe, just stood there, as if it had always been. A memory, kept. Behind me, the boxes shifted again. Softly, patiently, and from the blocked aisle, my voice whispered. Almost right, but not quite. You forgot to leave. The store's shelves began rearranging themselves into a spiral staircase. At first, it was just a shift. A small one, easy to dismiss. I was halfway through restocking the drinks, the cooler humming behind me with that steady, low vibration you stop noticing after a few hours. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered in their usual uneven rhythm, casting the aisles in a thin, washed-out glow. It was late enough that the outside had gone silent. No cars, no footsteps, just the store and the quiet. I turned to grab another box. When I looked back, the shelf beside me had moved. Not much, maybe an inch or two inward. I frowned. We had narrow aisles already, barely enough room for 2 people to pass. I knew their spacing by instinct, by repetition. I could walk them in the dark and never brush a shoulder. This felt wrong. I stepped into the aisle, testing it. The space tightened around me, subtle but unmistakable. The metal shelf pressed closer to my arm than it should have. Okay, I muttered, glancing up. The lights flickered again. The hum of the coolers deepened for a second, then settled. I reached out and pushed the shelf. It didn't move. It felt fixed, as if it had always been there. A faint scraping sound echoed from somewhere deeper in the store. Metal against tile. Slow. Deliberate. I froze. Another scrape followed, further away this time, like something adjusting itself out of sight. Hello, I called. My voice sounded thin, absorbed by the aisles. No answer. I took a step forward. The aisle shifted again. This time I saw it. The shelves ahead leaned inward, just slightly, like a bowing motion. Boxes slid a fraction of an inch, aligning themselves in neat, unnatural rows. Cans rotated so their labels faced the same direction, not outward, but angled. Towards something. The smell changed. Dust, first. Old, dry, like something undisturbed for years. Then something sharper. Ozone. It prickled in the back of my throat. The air grew heavier with it, pressing down as if the ceiling had lowered. Another scrape. Closer now. The sound came from the intersection of aisles 3 and 4. I shouldn't have gone toward it. I knew that, but something in the motion, the way everything adjusted, settled, prepared, felt intentional. Like it expected me to follow. I moved. Each step echoed faintly, but not quite in sync. There was a delay, a second set of footsteps that landed just after mine, as if the floor were remembering where I had been. When I reached the intersection, I stopped. The aisles had shifted. They no longer met at right angles. Instead, they curved. The shelves bent inward, their straight lines warping into a gentle arc. Products clung to them at impossible angles, as if gravity had tilted but only for them. Another scrape. The shelves moved again, louder this time. Metal legs dragged across tile with a grinding sound that vibrated up through my feet. Dust shook loose from the higher racks, drifting down in thin, pale strands. The curve tightened, and then I saw it. The aisles weren't just bending. They were turning, spiraling inward. The shelves stacked over one another in a rising curve, each level offset slightly from the last, forming a winding path that climbed and descended at the same time. I couldn't tell which direction it led. My eyes tried to follow it, but the geometry refused to settle into anything stable. A spiral staircase, made of shelves, of products, of the store itself. Stop, I whispered. The movement slowed. For a moment, everything held. Then, a final, heavy scrape. The structure locked into place. Silence fell. The hum of the coolers faded to a distant murmur. The lights above dimmed, flickering in longer intervals, as if struggling to keep up with something deeper. The spiral stood in front of me, waiting. The air around it felt thick, almost liquid. Each breath came slower, heavier, as though I had to pull it through something dense. I took a step back. The floor beneath me responded with that delayed echo. A step forward. From the spiral. I stared. Hello. I said again. The word stretched strangely, the sound bending as it entered the spiral. It came back to me distorted, softened, like it had been worn down by repetition. Hello. But the voice wasn't mine. Not exactly. I felt it then. The pull. Subtle at first. A suggestion more than a force. A quiet pressure at the base of my spine, urging me closer. The spiral felt familiar. Not visually. Not in any way I could name. But in a deeper sense. Like a routine. Like a path I had taken before, over and over, until it etched itself into something beneath memory. I stepped forward. The pull eased. Approval. The first step onto the spiral felt wrong. The shelf beneath my foot was solid, but the angle didn't match what my body expected. It sloped just enough to make my balance uncertain, like walking on a surface that shifted between flat and curved. I grabbed the edge of a higher shelf to steady myself. It was warm, not like metal, like something that held heat. The smell of ozone intensified. I climbed. Each step produced that same delayed echo, not behind me now, but below. As if something followed my movements from earlier, replaying them just out of sight. The store around me faded. Not completely, but it became thinner, less defined. The edges of aisles blurred, stretching into the spiral's curve. And then, I heard voices. Soft at first. Fragments. Be right back. Closing in 10. Did you check aisle? My breath caught. They were mine. Different tones. Different days. Versions of me I barely remembered. The spiral remembered them. Kept them. Each step brought more. The shelves beside me shifted again, their products rearranging into patterns I recognized, stocking layouts, mistakes I'd made, corrections I'd learned. Entire routines unfolded in front of me, replayed in silent, precise detail. The staircase wasn't just built from the store. It was built from what I'd done in it. Every repetition, every habit, every unnoticed moment. I kept climbing, or descending. I couldn't tell anymore. The air thickened further, pressing against my chest. The voices grew louder, more immediate. Don't forget the back. You left this here. You always do this. They overlapped now, forming a constant murmur that filled the spiral. Then, a new voice. Clear, close, almost there. I stopped. The spiral shifted slightly beneath me, as if adjusting my position. Below, or above, something moved. I leaned over the edge, and saw the bottom, a flat space where the spiral ended. A small, familiar square of tile. The front counter, the register, the stool, and behind it, me, standing perfectly still, facing the entrance. The same posture I'd held for hours. The same blank expression I slipped into when nothing was happening. A version of me, preserved. Kept. The realization settled slowly, like something heavy sinking into place. The spiral wasn't random. It wasn't an accident. It had been built. From my routines. From my repetitions. From every moment I'd stood in this place, doing the same things, thinking the same thoughts. The store hadn't just watched. It had learned. And now, it had arranged everything into a path, leading back to the most stable version of me. The one easiest to keep. The voice came again, closer now. Right behind me. You can stop here. I turned. Too late. Something moved through me. Not around. Not past. Through. My body stepped forward on its own. Down the final steps. Onto the tile. The spiral above me creaked, settling. I tried to move. To step away. But my legs locked. My posture straightened. My hands rested on the counter exactly where they always did. Perfect. Behind my eyes, something shifted. Like a door closing. The last thing I saw. Up in the spiral. Another version of me. Still climbing. Still moving. Still thinking this was happening for the first time. The shelves adjusted around them, guiding each step. And I understood then why the store built it. It wasn't trapping me. It was refining me. Keeping the version that stayed. And letting the others keep walking. Until they were ready to be remembered.